I am honored and excited to introduce you to an exclusive, brand new innovation called the Legacy Rescue Plan, the operative word being rescue. Now, this puts a whole new spin on motivating people to take action because it implies that their legacy is in jeopardy. And whatever that may mean, the title places the fear of loss in their minds right from the beginning. But we have to clearly explain why their legacy is in jeopardy and how the plan solves that problem. And that's what I'm going to be showing you in this presentation. Even though we'll intentionally show a fear of loss whenever we present this program to the client or a group, we also want to show that the solution is going to be painless and in fact enjoyable. Most people are familiar with the popular book, Tuesdays with Morrie. The Legacy Rescue Plan is facilitated in the same basic context of scheduling regular visits over time until the job is done. In fact, to begin the plan, you and the client get to come up with your own title. You can come up with things like First Fridays with Francis or Third Mondays with Mary, depending on the frequency of your visits. This way the client is always aware of the schedule and looking forward to the visit. Now, during each visit, you're going to be working through a 6-step legacy building process. And at the end of each visit, you'll be assigning the client a task to complete before the next Friday with Francis. And as coach, you're going to know the capabilities and the time constraints of your clients, so that way you can assign the tasks to accommodate. So let me show you the basic outline of the 6-step process. Now, the object is to make the legacy building process orderly, efficient, and the most impactful. The sequence goes something like this. First, we want to organize. Then we want to prioritize, digitize, characterize, memorialize, and finally, socialize. So let me briefly explain each one of these and how one step flows naturally to the next. We start by organizing all of the client's potential legacy content. Now, for most people, the majority of their defining moments, their turning points and milestones were recorded in their pictures, their slides, home movies, their audio cassettes, journals, letters, newspaper articles, diaries, keepsakes, and their mementos. Now, some of you came to be certified legacy advisors, and you're already professional photo organizers, so you already know how people are desperate to get a handle on the accumulation of photos taken over a lifetime and the peace of mind that they're going to have when it's all been organized. But when it comes to building a comprehensive legacy, people need help organizing a lot more than just their photos, as you can see by this image. So during your presentation, you should put a lot more emphasis on solving this problem because it's something most people are wrestling with more than you think. When people are reminded of how scattered their most important legacy materials are, you're going to be able to offer them huge benefits. And the biggest benefit will be peace of mind. Because now, with their old content fading and new content accumulating at lightning speed, piling on by the day, they're going to be more ready than ever before to tackle the problem, and you will be their rescue solution. So by organizing all of their media as the first step, they're going to be more open to taking the next step. And that next step is to prioritize. Now, it would be great if every picture the client ever took had significant meaning, but they don't. And the same is true for all of their other legacy materials. It's your job to help people prioritize their memories so they choose which content has the greatest importance to them. And this is where they cull through the abyss of recorded life media so that they select content that rises to the level of what I call legacy status. Now, it used to be that when Mom passed away, the children would go into her hope chest and her jewelry boxes, and they'd find a few special items and photographs, maybe a handwritten letter or two. And because there were so few items, we cherished them so much, and we'd honor them and pass them down to our own children. But in the last 75 years or so, we have consumed and recorded so much stuff that we'll be leaving our kids way too much information. Tens of thousands of photographs, keepsakes from all of our travels, birthday and holiday greeting cards from decades back. Even now we have recordings of daily Facebook and Twitter posts, pins on Pinterest, blogs, texts, pictures from smartphones and tablets, digital cameras and SD cards we haven't even looked at in years. Who actually thinks our children and grandchildren are ever going to take the time to read all of that or view all those pictures? It's not going to happen. The amazing paradox of having all this convenient technology at our fingertips is that there's so much information, and our family and friends are going to have so little time to bother with it, that even though we have so much more to leave, we have much less that will ever be appreciated. And that's where things are today. Tomorrow, we'll be accumulating vastly more. So that is a huge problem. So rescuing legacy status content off a mountain of media makes more sense than ever before. And our job is to guide clients down that mountainside by organizing and then selecting their legacy content. And then we want to get them into the habit where they can instantly identify and then set aside their future recordings, pictures, writings, and documents, and only those that rise to the level of legacy status. So helping people prioritize their legacy status content is step 2. First, we organize and compile an inventory resource list. Then we narrow down and select the best of their best content. And once they've organized and prioritized, step 3 is to digitize. Now that we've identified the legacy content that matters most, we want to digitize this group first and foremost. This not only saves the client a lot of money, but also a lot of time. So you can get to the fun part in step 4. Now, I'm not saying that the rest of their media isn't worth digitizing, but time and money is the enemy. So in the best interest of your client, you should be making sure that at the very least, their A-list memories have been identified and digitized first. Now, if the client wants to do more, you're going to be happy to oblige. But your ultimate purpose is to help them build a legacy. And so you'll always want to keep them focused on their legacy content above anything else. So far, we've organized, prioritized, and then digitized their legacy content. That process alone is going to give them enormous peace of mind, and it's going to make you a friend for life. And you'll probably, by the way, find that a digital voice recorder is going to come in handy during your Fridays with Francis, because while they're choosing their legacy content, stories are going to happen. Which brings me to the next step, which is to characterize. This is the fun part, because once the media is digitized, it makes telling the stories so much easier. By working through the process, they will have selected only those items and photos that are really important and represent major milestones. So identifying people in the old photos won't be nearly as time-consuming, but yet a lot more compelling. And the same is true with writing a memoir or an autobiography, because the most relevant material will always have been sorted and carefully selected. That's sometimes half the cost for a memoir writer. And we know this well because Christine just finished producing this memoir of Charles Sloane. And doing this would have been a lot easier had we taken these 6 steps before we started the memoir. Having legacy media available in digital format and completely organized is also going to make it much easier to produce other items such as your coffee table books or let's say a tribute video and other things. I mean, even producing the Legacy Matters pictorial DVDs will be a lot easier because they'll already have the best content at their fingertips. The life experiences that matter most are going to be right there. This is going to be one of the biggest benefits that your client's going to receive beyond peace of mind, which is already huge. And these are all tangible benefits that they can understand and get excited about. And like I said, by the time you get to this stage with the client, now they can see that they actually really do have stories worth telling. That's why without going through this process, it's so hard to convince people that they have stories that are worth telling. But in this case, they've already identified important milestones, and they've come to realize that they've lived a life worth documenting. So now it becomes even more important for them to write or record their life lessons and those legacy letters. Their mindset has already evolved to the point where their life experiences are clearly too valuable to let fade away, and it's going to be too hard for them to ignore or to procrastinate. And that leads to the next phase, memorialize. Everything makes sense to the client now. As their stories are being recorded and their media is digitized, they will better appreciate why you are so adamant about backing up on archival DVD and online. But now you also become experts in archiving and preservation. Even though you have digitized their media, it doesn't necessarily mean they want to throw the original away. Sometimes the original photo or a handwritten letter can become a true family relic and needs to be saved in such a way that it can last as long as possible. And there are some pretty basic preservation techniques that you can inform your client about, and they're going to make you look like an expert while helping them in a big way. In the Legacy Builder Toolkits, we have links to where you can order acid-free archival containers or direct your client to buy them for themselves. You're also going to find information about best practices, and you can learn a lot more about this online, in blogs or in books. It's not all that complicated, and because you are their advisor, they're going to be impressed and thankful that you can inform them of things they otherwise would never have known. Now, not to diminish the job of professional organizers, but this is a lot different than organizing a messy closet. This is preservation of the most valued family treasures, such as a special garment or a wedding gown, a handmade quilt, a handwritten letter, a book, or those original legacy photos and media. And this is where even more Fridays with Frances can be spent recording the stories related to the item so they can be stored together and preserved. As preservationists, you'll provide them a sense of security for the future of their legacy items, elevating your value to them. Now, the more they become surprised about their own story, the more they're going to want those stories shared. See how the process flows? And that's the final step in the process. It's where they socialize, where they share their stories. This is actually a step that's taken all along the way. As their legacy stories and media are digitized and archived, they're going to clearly learn the difference between ordinary daily events and those that rise to legacy status. This is where you can show them why it's critical to have a go-to place online where only those A-list legacy content, stories, and media are backed up and shared. By showing your own legacy content in the Legacy Stories web library and how it is shared with family and friends, it's going to make more sense for them to back up and share their legacy content as part of the process. You'll be able to show how family members are enriched by their legacy stories. It will be a purposeful complement to the day-to-day activities of Facebook and other social media. That's what legacy stories should be reserved for. Just legacy stories. So let me review again the 6 steps. First, we organize. Then we prioritize, digitize, characterize, tell the stories. We memorialize, backing up and archiving, and socialize, sharing. Now, if I was conducting a legacy seminar, this is the sequence I would show in order to start people on their own Tuesdays with Maury legacy rescue plan. So when you look at the natural flow of this process, you can better understand why it's hard for people to see the value of their legacy stories at first. The good news is that more and more people are falling way behind when it comes to managing their media content these days. It's becoming overwhelming to say the least, and most people know it. They're just not reckoning with the reality yet. They know the problem has to be addressed sooner or later, and that the longer they put it off, the more impossible it's going to be for them to ever make sense out of it. And that triggers the two most powerful motivators, pain and fear of loss. Tap those triggers, and your business is going to take off. That's why CLAs are coming to the rescue. Helping people solve this problem will lead to the things that we love to do. And it will ultimately convince more than just the family historian or the genealogist that stories are worth saving. And that opens up a vastly bigger market for you. So I hope you can see why this all makes sense. Now, the beauty of all this is that a program like this requires consistent appointments set over time. By creating a Tuesdays with Maury type program with your clients, you essentially secure a lot of small jobs that can be done continuously over time, giving you a degree of reliable income. So let me show you how that can translate. First, there needs to be an established time for the sessions, and it needs to be the same every week or month, depending on the frequency. Of course, it's better if you can meet more than once a month. And this is going to depend on time availability and your client's budget. So if Francis, for example, can only afford to meet with you once a month, you'd name your program something like First Fridays with Francis. Now, I recommend your sessions be a minimum of 90 minutes, but if you can, make them 2 to 3 hours each. This way your travel time is cut down significantly. And also, this way you can set your rate according to sessions rather than on a per hour basis. Of course, it always translates into hours, but your session rates have a higher perceived value. Now, in New York City, a competitive rate for professional services can be a lot different than in Hot Springs, Arkansas, for example. So take this scenario that I'm going to show you as a sample that you can adjust to your area. For most people, this is going to be affordable for most clients, and yet a fair enough price for a professional to charge. So say you schedule a 2-hour session and you charge $150, which would equate to $75 an hour. Now, for a lot of you, this is a pretty respectable income for providing services that you really enjoy. Now, is it too high a hurdle to set a goal for 20 clients? At $150 a month per client, you could be taking in $3,000 a month. Now, that's not bad. And of course, that doesn't mean you need 20 clients to do that. Many of your clients could be meeting with you more frequently, even on a weekly basis. When that happens, you may only need a dozen clients to be picking up $3,000 a month. And oh, by the way, that's only about 40 total hours of work, not counting your travel time, per month. For 40 hours of work, picking up $3,000 a month is not such a bad deal. So you can see how small bites, taken consistently over time, generate continuity for you. And that's before you start selling them your aftermarket services like the Legacy Matters pictorial DVDs. Or if you do digital conversion, you still have their C list and their B list to do. And if you do enjoy writing memoirs or autobiographies, this sets up that opportunity. And if they ask for it, you can broker it out as an advisor, similar to what Christine did, and pick up a nice commission for the referral. Or if you provide transcription services, you can pick up a little extra there. If you enjoy editing or producing DVDs for the people at, special slideshows, there's all kinds of opportunity, and you have the legacy content at your fingertips. You can create coffee table books. You can recommend doing these things for them along the way as certain milestones or birthdays or anniversaries or holidays come into play. And as you're going through these stories, obviously they're going to be talking about family members that are no longer here. That leads you to the opportunity to sell them genealogical services. And of course, so much of this needs to be stored and backed up online, and so it makes sense for them to buy their vault and utilize the upgrades to the toolkits in the Legacy Stories library. And of course, you make some commission on that. And by the way, we're leaving out one of the biggest things of all, and that's that by working with people in this manner, the referrals are going to begin to flow. And that way you'll never have to spend money marketing your services again. And now let me remind you that like all consulting services, especially startups, at first you're going to be doing twice as much work for half the money. As your calendar fills up because you become more in demand, you're going to be charging twice as much and doing half the work. That's the way it works. So this is what I want you to take away. Consider positioning yourself as a legacy content organizer, more so maybe than as a historian. You'll become a historian, an archivist, a preservationist, and even more by default when you solve the organizational problem, because that is a real problem everyone can identify with right now, and it'll be easier to make that connection. So I hope you're as excited about the Legacy Rescue Plan as I am, because I think that is the real future for our legacy advisors.